You know what the biggest lie is? That you give up because you're not strong enough, not smart enough, not talented enough. That's what people tell themselves when they quit. They look for reasons outside of themselves, excuses that feel safe, explanations that let them off the hook. But here's the truth you need to hear right now. You don't give up because you lack ability. You give up because you haven't trained your mind to keep going when everything inside you says stop. Think about it. How many times have you started something with fire in your chest, with clear vision, with genuine excitement, only to quit weeks later when the road got hard? How many goals have you abandoned? How many dreams have you let die quietly because the struggle felt too heavy? And every time you walked away, you told yourself a story. You said it wasn't the right time. You said maybe it wasn't meant to be. You said you'd try again later, but later never came. This isn't about making you feel bad. This is about making you face reality. Because if you want to change your life, if you want to become someone who actually finishes what they start, you need to understand that giving up is a pattern. It's a habit. It's something your mind has learned to do when faced with discomfort. And just like any habit, it can be broken. But breaking it requires you to stop running from the hard conversation. The conversation about why you quit in the first place. Most people give up for the same core reasons. They hit resistance and think it means they're on the wrong path. They face failure and take it as proof they don't have what it takes. They compare their beginning to someone else's middle and convince themselves they're too far behind. They work hard for weeks and see no visible results, so they assume their effort is wasted. They feel pain, doubt, fear, exhaustion, and they interpret those feelings as signs to stop instead of signs they're growing. But here's what nobody tells you. Those feelings, they're supposed to be there. Discomfort is not a warning sign. It's a growth sign. When your muscles burn during a workout, you don't stop and say something's wrong. You know that burn means you're building strength. Your mind works the same way. When you feel like quitting, when the voice in your head says you can't do this, that's not weakness. That's your mind being challenged beyond its current limits. And that challenge is exactly what builds mental toughness. The cost of giving up isn't just the goal you didn't reach. It's deeper than that. Every time you quit, you teach yourself that quitting is an option. You reinforce the pattern. You make it easier to give up next time. And over time, you start to see yourself as someone who doesn't finish things. Someone who starts strong but fades. Someone who has potential but never follows through. That identity becomes your reality. Not because it's true, but because you've practiced it so many times that your mind believes it. You've got to understand something crucial. Your mind is a tool. It's the most powerful tool you have. But like any tool, it needs training. It needs direction. Left to its own devices, your mind will choose comfort every single time. It will avoid pain. It will seek the path of least resistance. It will rationalize quitting and make it sound logical. That's not a flaw. That's biology. Your brain is designed to conserve energy and avoid threats. But in the modern world, the threats aren't tigers and cliffs. The threats are discomfort, uncertainty, and the fear of failure. And if you let your untrained mind run the show, it will keep you safe. But safety and growth don't live in the same place. So here's what this is really about. It's about taking control. It's about training your mind the same way you'd train your body. It's about building mental resilience, mental strength, mental endurance. It's about learning how to keep going when your feelings tell you to stop. It's about understanding the psychology, the neuroscience, the practical strategies that separate people who quit from people who finish. And most importantly, it's about deciding right now that you're done being someone who gives up. This isn't going to be comfortable. Real growth never is. But if you stick with this, if you actually apply what you're about to learn, you won't just change one area of your life. You'll change how you show up in everything. You'll become someone who can be trusted to follow through. someone who doesn't fold under pressure, someone who finishes what they start, not because it's easy, but because you've trained your mind to keep moving forward no matter what. Let's be clear about something. This isn't motivational fluff. This isn't about pumping you up for a day and having you forget everything tomorrow. This is about real, practical, science-backed methods to rewire how your mind responds to difficulty. You're going to learn why your brain wants you to quit, how to override that impulse, and what daily practices actually build the kind of mental strength that doesn't break under stress. You might be thinking you've heard this before. You might be skeptical. That's fine, but answer this honestly. Are you happy with how many times you've quit in the past? Are you proud of how you've handled challenges? If the answer is no, then something needs to change, and that something is how you train your mind. By the end of this, you're going to understand exactly how to build a mind that doesn't give up, not through sheer willpower, not through toxic positivity, but through understanding how your mind works and using that knowledge to your advantage. You're going to learn the specific mental frameworks, the daily habits, the psychological techniques that turn ordinary people into finishers. People who set a goal and see it through. People who face obstacles and find ways around them. People who fall down and get back up. Not because they're special, because they've trained for it. So if you're ready to stop being someone who quits, if you're ready to build real mental toughness, if you're ready to become the kind of person who finishes what they start, then pay attention, because what you're about to learn will change how you approach every challenge for the rest of your life. Understanding your mind's quit mechanism. Your brain is not your enemy, but it's not always your friend either. It's a survival machine. And survival, in your brain's view, means avoiding anything that feels hard, risky, or uncertain. That's why when you face a challenge, your mind immediately starts looking for exits. It's not trying to ruin your life, it's trying to protect you. But in doing so, it's also holding you back. Let's talk about what actually happens in your brain when you're about to give up. There's a part of your brain called the amygdala. It's your threat detection system. It's constantly scanning for danger. In ancient times, this kept you alive. It made you run from predators, avoid poisonous plants, stay away from the edge of cliffs. But today, your amygdala can't tell the difference between a physical threat and an emotional one. So when you're facing a difficult task, when you're putting yourself out there, when you're trying something that might fail, your amygdala treats it like danger. It floods your body with stress hormones. It creates feelings of anxiety, doubt, fear. And those feelings, they feel like truth. They feel like your body is telling you to stop because something is actually wrong. But here's the thing. Nothing is wrong. Your amygdala is just doing its job. It's trying to keep you in your comfort zone. Because your comfort zone is safe. Your brain doesn't care about your goals. It doesn't care about your potential. It cares about keeping you alive. And from a survival perspective, trying new things, pushing through discomfort, persisting through failure, these all look like unnecessary risks. So your brain hits the alarm button. It tells you you're tired. It tells you this isn't worth it. It tells you to quit while you're ahead. There's another part of your brain that's important here. It's called the prefrontal cortex. This is your rational brain, your decision maker, your long-term planner. This is the part of your brain that sets goals, understands delayed gratification, and knows that temporary discomfort leads to long-term gain. When you're working towards something meaningful, your prefrontal cortex is in charge. It sees the bigger picture. It knows why you started. It understands that struggle is part of the process. But here's the problem. Your prefrontal cortex is weak compared to your amygdala. When you're stressed, tired, overwhelmed, your amygdala takes over. Your rational brain goes offline. And suddenly, all those reasons why you started, all those long-term benefits, they don't matter anymore. All you feel is the discomfort. All you want is relief. And the fastest way to get relief is to quit. This is why people make terrible decisions. when they're in the middle of a struggle. They're not thinking clearly. Their survival brain has hijacked their decision-making. And in that state, quitting feels like the smartest, most logical choice. But it's not. It's just the choice that ends the discomfort right now. And your brain loves that. Your brain is obsessed with immediate relief, even if it costs you everything in the long run. So the first step in training your mind to never give up is understanding this battle. You need to recognize when your amygdala is calling the shots. You need to notice when you're feeling the urge to quit and realize it's not truth, it's biology. Your brain is trying to pull you back to safety, but you don't have to listen. You can acknowledge the feeling without obeying it. You can say, "I see you, fear. I feel you, doubt, but I'm not stopping." This is where mental training begins. Not with ignoring your feelings, not with pushing through like a robot, but with understanding what's happening and choosing differently. Your feelings are real. Your brain's alarm system is real, but your ability to override it is also real. And the more you practice this, the stronger your prefrontal cortex becomes. You literally rewire your brain. You teach it that discomfort is not danger. You show it that persistence pays off. And over time, the urge to quit gets weaker. Not because the challenges get easier, but because your mind gets stronger. There's also something called cognitive load. Your brain has limited processing power. When you're learning something new, when you're solving hard problems, when you're dealing with uncertainty, your brain is working overtime. It's burning through mental energy. And when your mental energy runs low, everything feels harder. Tasks that would normally be manageable suddenly feel impossible. Your patience disappears, your motivation drops, and the voice that says quit gets louder and louder. This is why so many people give up late in the day, or after a long week, or when they're dealing with multiple stressors at once. Their mental gas tank is empty. And when you're running on fumes, your brain defaults to the easiest option, which is stopping. This is why discipline and willpower alone aren't enough. You can't rely on mental toughness if you're not managing your mental energy. You have to be strategic. You have to protect your brain's resources. You have to create conditions that make it easier to keep going, not harder. Another critical piece is something called learned helplessness. This is a psychological phenomenon where you experience repeated failure or repeated lack of control, and your brain starts to believe that effort doesn't matter. You try and fail. You try again and fail again. And eventually your brain concludes that the outcome isn't connected to your actions. So you stop trying, not because you're lazy, because your brain has decided that trying is pointless. This happens more than people realize. You work hard at something and don't see results. You put in effort and it doesn't pay off. You try to change and nothing changes. And slowly, you start to believe that maybe you're just not cut out for this. Maybe success is for other people. Maybe you don't have what it takes. That's learned helplessness talking. And it's a trap. Because the truth is, most worthwhile things take longer than you expect. Results come slowly. Progress is invisible for a long time before it suddenly becomes visible. But if you quit during the invisible stage, you never get to see the breakthrough. The antidote to learned helplessness is understanding causality. You have to see the connection between your actions and your results. Even if the results are small, even if they're delayed, you have to track your progress. You have to notice the tiny improvements, because when your brain sees that effort leads to outcomes, even small ones, it stays engaged. It keeps trying. It doesn't give up. Here's the reality. Your brain is trainable. Just like you can train your muscles to lift heavier weights, you can train your brain to handle more discomfort, more uncertainty, more resistance. But you have to do it intentionally. You can't just hope you'll be mentally tougher someday. You have to practice. You have to put yourself in situations where your brain wants you to quit, and then you have to stay. That's the workout. That's how you build the strength. And just like physical training, mental training gets easier over time. The first time you push through the urge to quit, it's brutal. Your brain is screaming at you. Every part of you wants to stop, but you don't. And the next time, it's still hard, but slightly less. And the time after that, slightly less again. Because you're building evidence. You're proving to your brain that you can do hard things. You're teaching it that discomfort doesn't mean danger. You're rewiring the quit mechanism. This is why it's so important to start small. You can't expect to go from quitting everything to never quitting anything overnight. Your brain needs practice. It needs proof. So you start with small challenges. You commit to something manageable, and you see it through, no matter what. Even if it's just 10 minutes a day, even if it's just one small task, you finish what you start, and you do it again tomorrow, and again the next day. And slowly, your brain starts to trust that you're serious. It starts to believe that quitting is no longer an option. What you're doing is building a new default. Right now, your default is to quit when things get hard. But you're going to replace that default with persistence. You're going to make not quitting your new normal. And once that happens, once your brain expects you to keep going, the battle gets easier. Not because you've eliminated discomfort, but because you've changed how you respond to it. Your mind's quit mechanism is powerful, but it's not invincible. It's just a pattern, a deeply ingrained pattern. Yes, but still just a pattern. And patterns can be changed. You're not stuck with the mind you have now. You can build a stronger mind, a more resilient mind, a mind that doesn't fold when things get tough. But you have to understand how it works first. You have to see the mechanisms. You have to recognize when your survival brain is trying to pull you back. And then you have to choose differently. One decision at a time, one day at a time, until not quitting becomes who you are. The foundation. Building mental resilience. Mental resilience isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. It's a skill. And like any skill, it gets stronger with practice. But most people don't know how to practice it. They think resilience means toughing it out, gritting your teeth, pushing through no matter what. And while there's some truth to that, it's not the whole picture. Real resilience is more sophisticated than that. Resilience is your ability to face difficulty, absorb the impact, and keep moving forward. It's not about being unbreakable. It's about being flexible. It's about bending under pressure without snapping. Think of a tree in a storm. The rigid tree breaks. The flexible tree sways, bends, adjusts, and survives. That's resilience. It's not about being hard. It's about being adaptive. The foundation of mental resilience starts with one core belief. You have to believe that you can handle hard things. Not that you'll never struggle. Not that everything will work out perfectly. But that when life gets difficult, you have the capacity to deal with it. This belief is everything. Because if you don't believe you can handle challenges, your brain will treat every obstacle as a catastrophe. It will overreact. It will panic. And you'll quit before you even start. So how do you build this belief? Through evidence. You have to create experiences where you face something hard and come out the other side. Small experiences at first, then bigger ones. Each time you do this, you're depositing proof into your mental bank. Proof that you're capable. Proof that you can survive discomfort. Proof that hard things don't destroy you. And the more proof you accumulate, the stronger your resilience becomes. Let's talk about practical ways to start building this foundation. First, you need to redefine what discomfort means. Right now, your brain probably treats discomfort as a problem, something to avoid, something that signals danger. But you need to flip that script. Discomfort is information. It tells you you're outside your comfort zone. And outside your comfort zone is where growth happens. So instead of running from discomfort, you start moving toward it. Not recklessly, but intentionally. You choose small discomforts on purpose. This could be physical discomfort, cold showers, hard workouts, intermittent fasting. These are controlled environments where you can practice staying calm while uncomfortable. Your body wants to flinch, wants to quit, wants relief. But you stay, you breathe, you remind yourself. This is temporary. This is training. And when you finish, you've just built a little more resilience. You've proven to yourself that discomfort doesn't control you. It could also be emotional discomfort. Having difficult conversations, setting boundaries, asking for what you need, admitting when you're wrong. These things feel uncomfortable because they make you vulnerable. But vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability is courage. And every time you choose vulnerability over avoidance, you build emotional resilience. You teach your brain that you can handle rejection, criticism, disappointment. You don't have to run from these feelings. You can sit with them and survive. Another key piece is developing what's called distress tolerance. This is your ability to sit with negative emotions without trying to escape them immediately. Most people have terrible distress tolerance. The moment they feel bad, they reach for a distraction. They scroll their phone. They eat. They binge-watch shows. They do anything to avoid sitting with the discomfort. And there's nothing wrong with seeking relief sometimes. But when it becomes your default, when you can't handle any negative emotion without numbing it, you lose resilience. Building distress tolerance means learning to sit with discomfort without reacting. You feel anxious, you don't immediately try to make it go away. You notice it. You name it. Anxiety. You observe where you feel it in your body. Tight chest, racing heart, and you breathe. You remind yourself that emotions are temporary. This feeling will pass. You don't have to fix it right now. You can just be with it. And the more you practice this, the less power difficult emotions have over you. You realize they're just sensations. They're not emergencies. And that realization is liberating. Resilience also requires perspective. When you're in the middle of a struggle, it feels like everything. It feels like this problem is your whole world. But resilient people have the ability to zoom out, to see the bigger picture, to remind themselves that this challenge, as hard as it feels right now, is temporary. It's one chapter, not the whole story. You're not asking yourself, can I do this forever? You're asking, can I do this right now, in this moment? And the answer is almost always yes. This is where self-talk becomes powerful. You need language that pulls you back to the present moment. Phrases like, I can handle this. This is temporary. I've survived hard things before. One step at a time. Just breathe. These aren't magic words, but they interrupt the spiral. They give your prefrontal cortex a chance to come back online. They remind you that you're in control, even when your emotions are screaming that you're not. Building resilience also means building recovery. You can't be in battle mode all the time. Your nervous system needs rest. Your brain needs downtime. If you're constantly pushing, constantly grinding, constantly in stress mode, your resilience will actually decrease. You'll burn out. So part of building mental toughness is knowing when to rest, knowing when to step back, knowing when to recharge. That's not weakness. That's strategy. The strongest people know how to manage their energy, not just their effort. Sleep matters. Nutrition matters. Movement matters. These aren't separate from mental resilience. They're part of it. When your body is strong, your mind is strong. When you're sleep deprived, everything feels harder. When you're eating poorly, your mood crashes. When you're sedentary, your energy tanks. You can't build a resilient mind in a neglected body. They're connected. So if you want mental toughness, you have to take care of the physical foundation. Social connection is another pillar of resilience. Humans are not meant to face everything alone. When you're struggling, when you're on the edge of giving up, Having people who believe in you can make the difference. Not people who enable excuses, but people who see your potential and remind you of it when you forget. People who've been through their own battles and can tell you it's worth pushing through. People who hold you accountable, but also hold space for your struggle. Find those people. Build those relationships, because resilience is easier to maintain when you're not isolated. Here's something else that's critical. Resilience requires meaning. You have to know why you're doing what you're doing. If you're pushing through difficulty for no reason, or for reasons that don't matter to you, you'll quit. But if you're connected to a deeper purpose, if you understand why this goal matters, if you can see how this struggle is part of a larger vision, you'll find strength you didn't know you had. Meaning is fuel. It's what keeps you going when motivation runs dry. So get clear on your why. Write it down. Revisit it often. Let it anchor you when everything else feels uncertain. And finally, building resilience means accepting imperfection. You're going to have bad days. Days where you feel weak, where you doubt yourself, where you want to quit. That doesn't mean you're failing. That means you're human. Resilience isn't about never struggling. It's about struggling and continuing anyway. It's about falling and getting back up. It's about failing and trying again. Perfection is not the goal. Persistence is. When you build mental resilience, you're not building a wall that nothing can penetrate. You're building flexibility, adaptability, and the confidence that no matter what happens, you'll find a way through. That's real strength, not the absence of struggle, but the refusal to let struggle be the end of the story. Start building that foundation today. Choose one small discomfort, face it, survive it, and do it again tomorrow. That's how resilience grows, one deliberate choice at a time. Reframe failure as feedback. Here's a hard truth. You're afraid of failure. Not just a little nervous about it. Deeply, fundamentally afraid of it. And that fear is why you quit. You don't quit because you can't do the work. You quit because you're terrified that if you keep trying and still fail, it will prove something terrible about you. That you're not good enough. That you're not capable. That you're fundamentally flawed. So you quit before failure can expose you. You tell yourself you stopped by choice, but really, you stopped out of fear. This is the failure trap. And almost everyone is caught in it. Because society has taught you that failure is bad. That it's something to avoid. That it means you're inadequate. From the time you were a kid, failure was punished. Bad grades meant disappointment. Mistakes meant correction. Coming in last meant embarrassment. So your brain learned to associate failure with pain. And now, as an adult, even the possibility of failure triggers your threat response. Your brain treats failure like danger. So it does everything it can to keep you away from situations where you might fail. Which means it keeps you away from anything challenging, anything uncertain, anything that would require real growth. But here's what you need to understand. That programming is wrong. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of success. It's data. It's feedback. It's information about what doesn't work, so you can figure out what does. Every successful person you admire has failed more times than you've even tried. The difference isn't that they never failed. It's that they didn't let failure mean anything about their worth. They saw it for what it actually is, a stepping stone, a lesson, a necessary part of the process. Think about how you learned to walk. You fell. Constantly. You tried to stand and fell down. You tried to take a step and fell down. You did this hundreds of times. But you didn't look at yourself as a failure. You didn't quit walking. You didn't think, I fell 12 times. Clearly, I'm not meant to walk. No, you kept trying. Because your brain hadn't learned to fear failure yet. You just saw falling as part of learning. And eventually, you figured it out. That's how everything worthwhile works. You try, you fail, you learn, you adjust, you try again. That's the process. But somewhere along the way you started interpreting failure as proof of inadequacy instead of proof you're learning. So the first step is reframing. You have to change what failure means to you. When something doesn't work out, when you make a mistake, when you fall short of your goal, you don't get to spiral into shame. You don't get to use it as evidence that you should quit. Instead, you ask one question: what can I learn from this? That's it. What did this teach me? What would I do differently next time? What new information do I have now that I didn't have before? When you approach failure as a teacher instead of a verdict, everything changes. Let's talk about specific types of failure and how to process them. There's the failure where you tried your best and it wasn't enough. This one stings because you put in real effort and still didn't get the result you wanted. Your brain wants to interpret this as proof that your best isn't good enough. But that's not what it means. It means your current best wasn't enough for this specific situation at this specific time. That's different. Your best is not fixed. Your best grows. Your best improves. So the question becomes, what would make my best better? What skill do I need to develop? What knowledge do I need to gain? What experience do I need to build? This isn't failure. This is a roadmap. Then there's the failure, where you didn't try your best. You half committed. You got distracted. You let fear hold you back. And when it didn't work out, you felt relief, because now you don't have to wonder what would have happened if you'd actually tried. This is the comfortable failure, the one where you protected yourself from real risk. But it's also the most dangerous, because it reinforces a pattern. It teaches you that holding back is safer. And if you keep doing this, you'll spend your whole life wondering what you were capable of. So when this happens, you have to be honest. You have to admit, I didn't give this everything I had. And then you have to decide if you're willing to try again, for real, this time. There's also the failure that comes from circumstances beyond your control. You did everything right, but external factors got in the way. Bad timing, bad luck, forces you couldn't have predicted. This one is hard because it feels unfair, and it is unfair. But fair or not, you still have to decide what to do next. You can use it as a reason to quit, or you can use it as a test of your adaptability. Can you pivot? Can you adjust your approach? Can you try a different path? The external circumstances might not change, but your strategy can. And sometimes the ability to adapt is more valuable than the ability to power through. Here's what most people don't realize about failure. It's not a one-time event. It's a process. Every meaningful goal involves failing forward. You try something. It doesn't work. You learn. You adjust. You try again. This cycle repeats until you succeed. But if you quit after the first failure, or the second, or the 10th, you never get to the breakthrough. You stop right before success becomes possible. And then you look at people who succeeded and think they were lucky, or talented, or special. But the truth is, they just stayed in the cycle longer than you did. They failed more. They learned more. They adjusted more. And eventually the pieces came together. This is why you have to separate your identity from your results. You are not your failures. You are not your successes either. You are the person who is learning, growing, and evolving. Your worth doesn't come from outcomes. It comes from effort, from courage, from the willingness to keep trying even when it's hard. When you understand this, failure loses its power over you. It stops being this terrifying thing that you have to avoid at all costs. It becomes neutral, just information, just feedback, just part of the process. Another critical shift is understanding that failure is often a sign you're pushing yourself. If you never fail, you're not challenging yourself enough. You're staying too safe. You're only doing things you already know how to do. But growth doesn't happen in the safe zone. It happens at the edge of your ability, where things are uncertain, where you might fail. That's where the learning is. So if you're failing, It means you're in the right place. It means you're stretching. It means you're growing. That should be celebrated, not feared. Now let's talk about the emotional side of failure. Because even when you intellectually understand that failure is feedback, it still hurts. You still feel disappointed, frustrated, embarrassed. Those feelings are valid. You don't have to pretend they don't exist. But you also don't have to let them dictate your decisions. You can feel the pain and keep moving forward. You can acknowledge the disappointment and still choose to try again. Resilience isn't about not feeling. It's about feeling and acting anyway. One practical tool is to build what's called a failure resume. This is a document where you list all your failures, what you learned from them, and how they helped you grow. It sounds counterintuitive. Why would you catalog your failures? Because when you do this, you start to see the pattern. You start to see that every failure taught you something valuable, that every setback pushed you toward a better approach. That failure wasn't the end. It was the middle. And when you have this evidence in front of you, when you can look back and see how much you've learned from things that didn't work, it becomes easier to face failure in the future. You know you'll survive it. You know you'll learn from it. You know it's just part of the path. Failure also requires humility. You have to be willing to admit when you're wrong, when your approach isn't working, when you need help. Pride is what keeps people stuck. They'd rather fail than admit they don't have all the answers. But humility is strength. It's the ability to say, I don't know everything, and I'm willing to learn. When you approach failure with humility, you open yourself up to growth. You ask for feedback. You seek mentors. You study what worked for others. You stop trying to figure it out all by yourself. And that's when real progress happens. Here's the bottom line. Failure is inevitable. If you're trying to do anything worth doing, you will fail multiple times. The question is, will you let that failure be the end of your story? Or will you let it be part of your story? Will you see it as proof you should quit, or proof you're learning? The answer depends on how you choose to frame it, and that choice is yours. No one else can make it for you. But if you want to train your mind to never give up, you have to start seeing failure differently. Not as an enemy, not as a verdict, but as a teacher. A harsh teacher sometimes, but a teacher nonetheless. Learn from it, adjust, and try again. That's how you turn failure into fuel. That's how you make it work for you instead of against you. The power of small wins and momentum. You want to know why most people quit? Because they set massive goals, expect fast results, and when they don't see dramatic change immediately, they assume it's not working. They want transformation overnight. They want to go from 0 to hero in a month. And when reality doesn't match that fantasy, they give up. But here's what they don't understand. Real change doesn't happen in big dramatic leaps. It happens in small, almost invisible steps. And those steps create something powerful. Momentum. Momentum is everything. It's what carries you through the hard days. It's what makes continuing feel easier than quitting. But momentum doesn't start with a massive effort. It starts with one small win, then another, and slowly those small wins stack up. They build energy. They create confidence. They prove to your brain that progress is possible. And once your brain believes progress is possible, it stops fighting you. It starts supporting you. Let's talk about what a small win actually is. It's something achievable, something you can do today, right now, regardless of how you feel. It's not run a marathon, it's run for 10 minutes. It's not write a book, it's write 200 words. It's not lose 50 pounds, it's make one healthy choice today. Small wins are specific, measurable, and within your control. They don't depend on circumstances. They don't require perfect conditions. You can do them, even on your worst day. And that's the point. When you focus on small wins, you remove the overwhelm. Big goals are intimidating. They feel impossible. Your brain looks at the distance between where you are and where you want to be, and it panics. It says that's too far, too hard, too much. And panic triggers the quit reflex. But when you break that big goal down into tiny steps, suddenly it's manageable. Your brain can handle one small step. It's not scary. It's just the next thing. And when you complete that step, you get a hit of accomplishment. Your brain releases dopamine. You feel good. And that good feeling makes you want to take another step. This is how momentum builds. Small win after small win. Each one proving to you that you're capable. Each one adding to your confidence. Each one making the next step feel slightly easier. And before you know it, you've traveled a distance you never thought possible. Not because you made one heroic effort, but because you made 1,000 small efforts. And those small efforts compound. Here's the problem. Most people dismiss small wins. They think small progress doesn't matter. They want big results or nothing. But that all or nothing thinking is what keeps them stuck. Because when you only count big wins as real wins, you're rarely winning. And when you're rarely winning, your brain gets discouraged. It starts to believe that success isn't available to you, so it stops trying. But when you celebrate small wins, you're winning constantly, every single day. And that constant winning keeps your brain engaged. It keeps hope alive. It keeps you moving forward. Let's get practical. What does this look like in real life? Say you want to get in shape. The big goal is intimidating. Lose weight, build muscle, get fit. Where do you even start? But a small win. Do 10 push-ups today. That's it. You can do that. It takes 2 minutes. You do it, and you've won the day. Tomorrow, you do it again. Another win. A week later, you're still doing it. That's 7 wins in a row. Your brain starts to recognize a pattern. You're someone who keeps commitments. You're someone who shows up. And that identity shift is more valuable than the 10 push-ups themselves. Or say you want to start a business. The big goal is overwhelming. Build a company, make money, create something successful. But a small win? Spend 30 minutes researching your idea today. Write down 3 potential names for your business. Send 1 email to someone who might give you advice. These are small. They're not going to change your life overnight. But they move you forward. They build momentum. And momentum is what turns ideas into reality. The key is consistency. Small wins only work if you stack them. 1 small win means nothing. But 100 small wins? That's transformation. That's how you build a new life. So you have to commit to the daily action. Not the perfect action. Not the impressive action. Just the consistent action. Show up every day. Do the small thing. Win the day. And trust that the wins are adding up, even when you can't see it yet. This is where tracking becomes essential. You have to see your progress. When you're in the middle of the journey, it's easy to feel like nothing is changing. Days blend together. Small wins feel insignificant. But when you track them, when you write them down, you create a visual record of your momentum. You can look back and see 20 days in a row where you showed up, 30 days, 50 days. And that visual proof is powerful. It reminds you that you're not stuck. You're moving. Slowly, yes, but moving. And as long as you're moving, you haven't quit. Tracking also helps you identify patterns. You start to notice what works and what doesn't. You see which days you showed up strong and which days you barely made it. You learn about yourself, and that self-knowledge helps you make better decisions going forward. You can double down on what's working. You can adjust what's not. But without tracking, you're blind. You're just guessing, and guessing leads to frustration, which leads to quitting. Another benefit of small wins is they protect you from burnout. When you're trying to do too much, when you're pushing too hard, you drain yourself, and eventually you crash. Your body gives out. Your mind gives out. and you quit. Not because you wanted to, but because you had no energy left. But when you focus on small wins, you're pacing yourself. You're building sustainably. You're creating a rhythm you can maintain for the long haul. And that's what you need. Not a sprint, a marathon, a pace you can keep up for months, years, a lifetime. Small wins also give you flexibility. Life happens. You get sick. You get busy. Things don't go as planned. And when you're tied to a massive goal that requires perfect conditions, those disruptions derail you. But when your standard is a small win, you can adjust. You can still show up even on a chaotic day. You can still win even when things aren't ideal. That flexibility keeps you in the game. It prevents the all-or-nothing spiral where one missed day turns into a week, a month, a permanent stop. Here's the psychological trick. Your brain doesn't distinguish between the size of the win. It just knows you won. Dopamine doesn't care if you wrote 500 words or 50. It cares that you finished what you set out to do. So you use that. You set a target, small enough that you can always hit it. And every time you hit it, your brain gets the reward. Your brain learns that following through feels good, and it starts to crave that feeling. It starts to want to win again tomorrow. And that's how you build a habit, not through massive willpower, through small, repeated successes that train your brain to enjoy the process. Let's talk about the compound effect. Small wins don't just add up, they multiply. One push-up today doesn't seem like much, but one push-up every day for a year, that's 365 push-ups. And by the end of that year, you're not just doing one anymore. You're doing 10, 20, 50. Because the habit got stronger. Because your body adapted. Because small progress compounds into big progress. This is true for everything. Reading 10 pages a day doesn't sound impressive, but 10 pages a day is 3,650 pages a year. That's 12 books from just 10 pages a day. That's the power of compounding. That's why small wins matter. The hardest part is believing in the process when you can't see the results yet. You're putting in the work, you're showing up, but nothing seems to be changing. This is where most people quit. They're in the valley, the invisible stage, the part where progress is happening, but it's not visible yet. And their brain says, this isn't working, but it is working. You just can't see it yet. Think of it like boiling water. You heat the water, and nothing happens. You keep heating it, and still nothing happens. 90 degrees, still nothing. 99 degrees, still nothing. But then you hit 100 degrees, and suddenly everything changes. The water boils, but all that heat before the boil, that wasn't wasted. That was necessary. That's where the change was happening. You just couldn't see it. The same is true for your progress. Your small wins are heating the water. And if you keep going, if you don't quit in the invisible stage, you will hit the boiling point. You will see the breakthrough, but only if you stay with it. So here's your challenge. Define your small win. What's the one thing you can do every single day that moves you toward your goal? Make it small enough that there's no excuse not to do it. Then do it. Today, tomorrow, every day. After that, track it, celebrate it. Let each small win build momentum. And trust that those wins are compounding even when you can't see it yet. Because momentum is what keeps you going when motivation fades. Momentum is what turns quitting from an option into an impossibility. And it all starts with one small win. Today, right now. Choose it. Do it. Win. Managing the voice that says stop. There's a voice in your head. You know the one. It shows up when things get hard, when you're tired, when you're doubting yourself. And it says, you should stop. It says this is too difficult. It says maybe this isn't for you. It says you've tried enough. It's okay to quit now. And here's the thing about that voice. It sounds like you. It sounds like your thoughts. So you listen to it. You believe it. You let it make your decisions. But that voice is not you. It's your fear. It's your doubt. It's your brain's survival mechanism, trying to pull you back to safety. And if you want to train your mind to never give up, you have to learn how to manage that voice, not eliminate it, manage it. Let's be clear. That voice will never fully go away. As long as you're pushing yourself, as long as you're doing hard things, it will be there, whispering, suggesting, tempting. But the voice doesn't have to control you. You can hear it and not obey it. You can acknowledge it and keep moving anyway. That's the skill you need to build, the ability to coexist with doubt without letting doubt decide your actions. The first step is recognizing the voice for what it is. It's not truth. It's not wisdom. It's protection. Your brain thinks it's helping you by suggesting you quit. It thinks it's saving you from pain, from failure, from embarrassment. But your brain doesn't understand your goals. It doesn't care about your dreams. It only cares about keeping you alive. And from a survival perspective, safety is always better than risk. So of course it tells you to stop. Of course it says you should quit. But you're not trying to survive. You're trying to thrive. And thriving requires ignoring the safety voice and choosing the growth voice. Most people treat their thoughts as facts. They think, if I'm thinking it, it must be true. But that's not how thoughts work. Thoughts are just mental events. They come and go. Some are useful. Some are noise. Some are lies. Your fear is telling you. Just because a thought enters your mind doesn't mean you have to believe it. And this is a radical shift for most people. You don't have to believe everything you think. You can observe a thought, recognize it as fear or doubt, and let it pass without acting on it. Here's a technique that works. When that voice shows up, when you hear it say you should quit, pause. Don't react immediately. Just pause. Then name what's happening. Say to yourself, "That's my fear talking," or "That's doubt trying to stop me," or "That's my quit mechanism activating." By naming it, you create distance. You separate yourself from the voice. It's no longer you thinking you should quit. It's just a voice. A familiar voice. Yes, but still just a voice. And voices can be ignored. Next, challenge the voice. Ask it questions. Is it true that I can't do this? Or is it true that I'm uncomfortable right now? Is it true that I should quit? Or is it true that I'm tired and my brain wants relief? When you question the voice, when you examine its logic, you usually find it's exaggerating. It's catastrophizing. It's treating temporary discomfort like permanent failure. And once you see that, the voice loses power. You realize it's being dramatic. It's being irrational. And irrational thoughts don't deserve to control your actions. Another powerful tool is talking back to the voice. Not in a mean way, but firmly. When it says you should quit, you say, "I hear you, but I'm not stopping." When it says this is too hard, you say, "Hard doesn't mean impossible." When it says you're not good enough, you say, "I'm good enough to keep trying." You're not arguing with the voice. You're not trying to convince it. You're just stating your position. You're reminding yourself that you have a choice, and you're choosing to continue. This is where self-talk becomes critical. The words you use in your head matter. If your internal dialogue is negative, defeatist, full of reasons why you can't, your actions will follow. But if your internal dialogue is firm, encouraging, focused on what you can control, your actions will reflect that instead. You have to become your own coach, your own supporter, your own source of strength when the voice of doubt gets loud. Some people find it helpful to give the voice a name. Call it the quitter, or the doubter, or the safety seeker. When you personify it, when you treat it like a separate entity, it becomes easier to not take it personally. It's not you wanting to quit. It's the quitter trying to convince you. And once you see it that way, you can say, "Thanks for the input, quitter, but I'm the one making decisions here." not you. This might sound silly, but it works, because it reinforces the truth. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind your thoughts, and you get to decide which thoughts to follow and which to ignore. Let's talk about the different forms the voice takes. Sometimes it's subtle. It doesn't say quit outright. It says, maybe you should take a break, just for today. You can start again tomorrow. And tomorrow comes, and it says the same thing. And before you know it, you've been on a break for a month. The voice knows that direct confrontation might not work, so it negotiates. It compromises. It makes quitting sound reasonable. You have to recognize this tactic. When the voice suggests delay, ask yourself, is this genuine need for rest, or is this avoidance? Be honest, because rest is necessary. But avoidance dressed up as rest is just quitting in slow motion. Sometimes, the voice uses comparison. It says, look at them. They're so much further ahead. You'll never catch up. You might as well quit now. This version of the voice is trying to demoralize you. It's trying to make you feel inadequate by measuring you against someone else's progress. But here's the truth. Their journey is not your journey. Their timeline is not your timeline. Comparing yourself to others is pointless because you're not competing with them. You're competing with the person you were yesterday. Are you better today than you were yesterday? That's the only comparison that matters. When the voice tries to trap you in comparison, redirect it. Focus on your own progress, your own growth, your own path. Sometimes the voice disguises itself as logic. It says, you've tried this before, and it didn't work. Why would it work now? It says, you don't have enough time, money, resources, support. It says, be realistic. This probably won't happen. And on the surface, these arguments sound reasonable, but they're not logic. They're fear, dressed up as logic. Real logic looks at obstacles and asks, how can I work around this? Fear, disguised as logic, looks at obstacles and says, this is proof I should quit. Learn to tell the difference. When the voice uses seemingly rational arguments, ask, is this helping me move forward, or is this justifying giving up? If it's the latter, dismiss it. You're not looking for reasons to quit. You're looking for ways to continue. Here's something important. The voice gets louder when you're tired, hungry, stressed, or sleep-deprived. This is when your prefrontal cortex is weakest and your amygdala is strongest. So your survival brain takes over and floods you with reasons to quit. This is why you have to protect your physical state. You have to manage your energy. You have to sleep enough, eat well, move your body, because when you're depleted, the voice wins. It's too strong. But when you're rested and energized, you can handle it. You can hear it and keep going anyway. One of the most effective ways to manage the voice is to have a pre-decided response. Before you start something challenging, before you commit to a goal, decide in advance what you'll do when the voice shows up. Write it down. When I want to quit, I will. And then list your strategy. I will take 5 deep breaths. I will remind myself why I started. I will do 1 more rep, 1 more minute, 1 more step. When you have a plan, when you've already decided how you'll respond, you don't have to think in the moment. You just execute. And that removes the negotiation. The voice doesn't get a chance to argue because you're not debating. You're just following your plan. You also have to remember that the voice is temporary. It feels permanent when it's loud. It feels like it will never stop. But voices pass. Emotions pass. Discomfort passes. If you can just hold on for a few more minutes, if you can just push through the peak of the discomfort, the voice will quiet down. It might not disappear completely, but it will lose intensity. And in that quieter moment, you can catch your breath. You can regroup. You can remind yourself why you're doing this, and then you can keep going. Another strategy is to shift focus. When the voice is loud, when it's overwhelming, don't fight it directly. Redirect your attention. Focus on your breath. Focus on the task at hand. Focus on the next small step. When you redirect your focus, the voice fades into the background. It's still there, but it's not center stage anymore. And when it's not center stage, it doesn't control you. This is mindfulness in action. Being present enough to notice the voice, but not so absorbed in it that you can't function. Let's address the guilt some people feel. They think, I shouldn't be doubting myself. I should be more confident. I should be stronger. And they feel ashamed when the voice shows up. But that shame is counterproductive. The voice showing up doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. Everyone has this voice, even the most successful, most disciplined people you can think of. They hear it too. The difference is, they've learned to not let it dictate their actions. So don't waste energy feeling guilty about the voice. Just manage it, acknowledge it, and move forward anyway. Here's the ultimate truth about the voice. It will test you. It will challenge you. It will try everything to make you quit. But every time you hear it and keep going anyway, you weaken its influence. Every time you choose action over doubt, you build strength. And over time, the voice becomes more like background noise. It's still there, but it doesn't shake you anymore. You've heard it so many times and ignored it so many times that it's lost its power. And that's the goal, not to silence the voice completely, but to make it irrelevant, to prove through repeated action that it doesn't get to decide. You do. So the next time you hear it, the next time it says you should stop, you should quit, you should give up, pause, recognize it, name it, challenge it, talk back to it, and then take one more step forward. That's how you manage the voice. That's how you take your power back. One decision at a time, one moment at a time, until the voice is just noise and you are unstoppable. Physical training for mental strength. Your mind and your body are not separate. They're connected, deeply. What you do with your body affects your mind, and what you do with your mind affects your body. This connection is not optional. It's biological. So if you want to build a mind that doesn't quit, you have to train your body. Not because you're trying to look good, because physical challenge builds mental toughness. Discomfort in the body teaches resilience in the mind. And the lessons you learn through physical training transfer to every other area of your life. Let's start with the basics. When you do something physically challenging, your body sends signals to your brain. It says, "This is hard." Your brain responds by trying to make you stop. It releases fatigue signals. It creates discomfort. It floods you with the urge to quit. But here's what's fascinating. Most of the time, your body has way more capacity than your brain thinks it does. The first signal to stop? That's not your body at its limit. That's your brain being cautious. It's trying to conserve energy, just in case you need it for a real emergency. So when you push past that first signal, when you keep going even though your brain is saying stop, you're teaching your brain something critical. You're teaching it that the first urge to quit is not truth. It's just a suggestion, and suggestions can be ignored. This is why physical training is so powerful for building mental strength. It gives you a controlled environment to practice ignoring your quit mechanism. You're not in actual danger. You're just uncomfortable. And in that uncomfortable space, you learn to separate sensation from emergency. You learn that sore muscles don't mean injury. That heavy breathing doesn't mean collapse. That exhaustion doesn't mean failure. You learn that you can be uncomfortable and keep going. And that lesson, that's the foundation of mental toughness. Every time you do a hard workout, every time you push yourself physically, you're making a deposit into your mental strength account. You're building evidence that you can handle discomfort, that you can push through resistance, that you're stronger than you think, and your brain files that evidence away. So the next time you face a non-physical challenge, when you're dealing with a difficult project, a stressful situation, a moment where you want to give up, your brain pulls up that evidence. It remembers. You've done hard things before. You've pushed through before. And if you can do it physically, you can do it mentally. That transfer is real. That's why athletes often succeed in business, why people who train their bodies tend to have stronger minds. The skills overlap. Let's talk about specific ways to use physical training for mental strength. The first is embracing discomfort on purpose. Most people avoid discomfort. They want everything to be easy, pleasant, comfortable. But when you train, you're choosing discomfort. You're running when you'd rather rest. You're lifting when you'd rather sit. You're moving when every part of you wants to stop. And in that choice, in that deliberate decision to be uncomfortable, you build a different relationship with pain. You stop seeing it as something to avoid and start seeing it as something you can handle. You become someone who doesn't run from hard things, someone who faces them head on. Cold exposure is a powerful example. Taking a cold shower, sitting in an ice bath. It's deeply uncomfortable. Your body screams at you. Your breath gets shallow. Every instinct says, get out. But if you stay, if you breathe through it, if you calm your mind despite the cold, you prove something to yourself. You prove that you can regulate your response to stress, that you can stay calm in discomfort, that your feelings don't have to control your actions. And that proof translates. The next time you're in a stressful meeting, or facing a scary decision, or dealing with anxiety, you remember, I stayed calm in the cold. I can stay calm now. That's the transfer. Running is another example. Distance running especially, because there's a point in every run where your mind says stop. You're tired. You're uncomfortable. And it would be so easy to quit, to slow down, to walk. But if you keep running, if you push through that voice, you build mental endurance. You teach your brain that the first urge to quit is not the end of your capacity, that you have more left, that you can keep going even when it's hard. And that mental endurance, you use it when you're working on a long project and you want to give up. You use it when you're pursuing a goal that's taking longer than expected. You use it when life gets hard and quitting sounds appealing. The endurance you built in your body shows up in your mind. Strength training also builds mental toughness, because every rep gets harder. The first one is easy, the last one, brutal. And in that last rep, when your muscles are screaming, when your form is breaking, when every part of you wants to drop the weight, you have a choice. Give up or push through. And if you push through, if you complete that rep, you've just won a mental battle. You've proven that you can do hard things even when they feel impossible. That victory matters, not because of the physical gain, because of the mental proof. You can push through, you can finish, you can handle more than you think. The key is consistency. One hard workout doesn't build mental strength. A pattern of hard workouts does, because it's the repetition that rewires your brain. It's the daily decision to show up and push yourself that builds the identity. You become someone who doesn't quit, not because you had one great day, because you had 100. And those 100 days taught your brain a new default. We don't quit, we keep going. That's who we are now. Physical training also teaches you about recovery. You can't go hard every single day. Your body needs rest. And that rest is not weakness. It's strategy. It's how you build strength. You stress the muscle, then you rest, and it grows back stronger. The same is true for mental strength. You push yourself, then you recover, and you come back stronger. Learning to balance effort and rest is a critical skill, and you learn it through your body first, then you apply it to your mind. There's also something powerful about finishing a workout you didn't want to start. There are days when you wake up and you don't want to train. You're tired, you're unmotivated. It would be so easy to skip it, but if you do it anyway, if you push through the resistance and complete the workout, you've just built massive mental strength because you proved to yourself that your actions don't depend on your feelings, that you can do what needs to be done, even when you don't want to. And that lesson is everything. That's how you build discipline. That's how you become someone who follows through. Not when it's convenient, when it's necessary. Let's talk about goals and training. When you set a physical goal, something specific like run a 5-kilometer race, or do 50 push-ups, or lift a certain weight, you create a target. And working toward that target teaches you about process. You can't achieve the goal today. You have to build toward it, day by day, workout by workout, and some days you'll improve. Some days you'll feel like you're going backward. But if you stay consistent, if you trust the process, you'll get there. That's the lesson. Progress is not linear, it's not smooth, but it's real if you don't quit. And when you finally hit that physical goal, when you achieve something you couldn't do before, you learn that long-term effort pays off, that patience works, that consistency wins, and those lessons, you carry them into every other goal you set. Physical training also builds confidence, not arrogance, confidence. When you get stronger, when you get faster, when you see your body improve, you start to believe in your ability to change. You realize that effort creates results, that you're not stuck, that you can improve anything if you're willing to work for it. And that belief is transformative. It shifts how you approach challenges. You stop saying I can't. You start saying I can't yet. And that yet is everything. Here's what you need to do. Choose a physical challenge. It doesn't have to be extreme. It just has to be hard for you. Something that pushes your current limits. Commit to it. Show up daily, or at least consistently. And when your body says stop, when you want to quit, push a little further. Not to the point of injury, but to the point of discomfort. Stay in that discomfort. Breathe through it. Remind yourself this is training. And finish every single time. Finish, because finishing is the practice. Finishing is the skill. And the more you practice finishing in your body, the more you'll finish in your life. Your body is a tool for building your mind. Use it, train it, push it. Not to punish yourself, to prove to yourself that you're capable of more than you think. That discomfort doesn't break you, that resistance doesn't stop you, that you are strong, mentally and physically, and that strength, it's yours. You built it. No one can take it away, and it will carry you through every challenge you face, in the gym and in life. Creating systems that prevent quitting. Here's the hard truth about willpower. It's unreliable. It runs out. You wake up with a full tank, but by the end of the day, it's empty. You have good intentions, but when you're tired, stressed, or overwhelmed, those intentions disappear, and then you quit. Not because you're weak, because you're relying on the wrong tool. Willpower is not a strategy. It's a temporary resource. And if you want to build a life where quitting isn't an option, you need something more powerful than willpower. You need systems. A system is a structure that makes the right choice easier than the wrong choice. It's an environment designed to support your goals instead of working against them. It's removing the need to decide every single time. Because here's what happens when you rely on decisions. Every decision costs mental energy. And when your energy is low, you make bad decisions. You choose comfort over growth. You choose easy over important. You quit. But when you have a system, the decision is already made. You just follow the system. No debate, no negotiation, just action. Let's talk about what this looks like practically. Say your goal is to exercise daily. If you rely on motivation and willpower, you'll have to decide every single day whether to work out. And on the days you're tired, busy, or unmotivated, you'll skip it. You'll tell yourself you'll do it tomorrow. But tomorrow you'll have the same decision to make. And eventually you'll quit. But if you build a system, the decision is removed. Your gym clothes are laid out the night before. Your alarm is set. Your workout is scheduled at the same time every day. It's non-negotiable. It's part of your routine. You don't ask yourself if you feel like it. You just do it, because the system makes it automatic. This is the power of systems. They remove friction. They eliminate the mental load. They make consistency easier. And consistency is what prevents quitting. When something is consistent, it becomes part of your identity. It's not something you have to think about. It's just what you do. That's the goal, to make not quitting automatic. One of the most important systems you can create is your environment. Your environment is constantly influencing your behavior. If your environment supports bad habits, you'll struggle to change. But if your environment supports good habits, change becomes natural. So you have to design your space deliberately. Remove temptations. Add triggers for good behavior. Make the things you want to do visible and the things you want to avoid invisible. For example, if you want to read more, put books everywhere. On your nightstand, on your coffee table, in your bag. Make it easier to pick up a book than to pick up your phone. If you want to eat healthier, fill your fridge with good food. Don't keep junk food in the house. When you're hungry and tired, you'll eat whatever's available. So make what's available align with your goals. That's environmental design. It's making your space work for you instead of against you. Another critical system is accountability. When you're only accountable to yourself, it's too easy to let yourself off the hook. You can make excuses. You can rationalize. You can quit, and no one else knows. But when someone else is counting on you, when someone else is watching, you show up differently. You don't want to let them down, so you keep going even when you don't feel like it. Accountability is not about shame or judgment. It's about creating external pressure that supports your internal goals. This could be a workout partner, someone who shows up at your door and makes you go to the gym even when you're tired. It could be a coach or mentor, someone who checks in on your progress and asks you the hard questions. It could be a public commitment, telling people what you're doing so that backing out feels harder. It could even be a tracking system where someone else can see your progress. The form doesn't matter. What matters is that you've created a situation where quitting is visible, where not following through has consequences, and that external structure keeps you honest when your internal motivation fades. You also need a system for handling obstacles, because obstacles will come. Life will get in the way. Things won't go as planned. And if you don't have a plan for dealing with that, you'll use it as an excuse to quit. But if you've already decided what you'll do when obstacles show up, you can adapt instead of quitting. This is called if-then planning. If X happens, then I'll do Y. If I'm too tired for a full workout, then I'll do 10 minutes. If I don't have time to cook, then I'll meal prep on Sundays. If I miss a day, then I'll restart immediately the next day. When you have these if-then statements prepared, obstacles don't derail you. They're just part of the plan. Let's talk about removing decision fatigue. Decision fatigue is real. The more decisions you have to make in a day, the worse your decision-making becomes. So by the time you're facing a difficult choice, like whether to keep working on your goal or give up, you don't have the mental energy to choose well. The solution is to reduce unnecessary decisions. Simplify your life. Create routines. Eat the same breakfast every day. Wear similar clothes. Follow a set schedule. This might sound boring, but boring is effective. Because when you remove trivial decisions, you preserve mental energy for important ones. And when you have energy, you don't quit. Another system that prevents quitting is progress tracking. When you can see your progress, when you have visual proof that you're moving forward, you stay motivated. But when progress is invisible, when you can't see if your effort is paying off, you lose hope, and hopelessness leads to quitting. So you have to track. It doesn't have to be complicated. A simple chart, a calendar where you mark off each day you showed up, a spreadsheet, a journal, anything that lets you see the pattern. Because when you see 20 days in a row where you followed through, you don't want to break that streak. The system creates its own momentum. You also need a system for managing your energy, not just your time. Time management is important, but energy management is critical, because you can have all the time in the world, but if you don't have energy, you'll still quit. So you have to protect your energy. That means sleep. Real, consistent sleep. That means nutrition. Eating food that fuels you instead of draining you. That means movement. Exercise that energizes instead of exhausts. That means breaks. Rest that actually restores you instead of just filling time. When your energy is managed, when you're operating from a full tank instead of fumes, you can handle more. You can push through harder. You're less likely to quit. Let's address the role of habits. Habits are systems on autopilot. When something becomes a habit, you don't have to think about it. You just do it. And that's what you want. You want not quitting to be a habit. You want showing up to be automatic. You want following through to be your default. So you have to build the habits deliberately. Start small. Pick one behavior. Attach it to an existing routine. Do it at the same time every day. Make it easy at first and repeat over and over until it's automatic. That's how you turn effort into habit. And habit is what prevents quitting long term. There's also power in deadlines. Deadlines create urgency. They force action. When something is open-ended, when there's no time pressure, it's easy to procrastinate, to put it off, to say you'll do it later. But when there's a deadline, you have to move. You have to act. So create deadlines for yourself, artificial ones, if necessary. Tell someone you'll finish by a certain date. Sign up for an event that forces you to prepare. Put money on the line. Whatever it takes to create real stakes, because stakes keep you from quitting. When quitting has consequences, you think twice before doing it. Another important system is limiting options. Too many options lead to paralysis. When you have endless choices, you spend all your time deciding and no time doing. And when you're not doing, you're not making progress. And when you're not making progress, you quit. So limit your options. Commit to one approach, one method, one path, and see it through before considering alternatives. This doesn't mean you can't pivot if something truly isn't working, but it means you're not constantly jumping ship because something else looks shinier. You pick a direction and you commit. That's how you make real progress. Let's talk about the system of celebration. Most people only celebrate the big wins, the final achievement, the end result. But that's a mistake, because the big wins are rare. And if you're only celebrating at the end, you're going months or years without positive reinforcement. That's hard on your brain. Your brain needs rewards. It needs to know that effort pays off. So you have to celebrate small wins. Every time you show up, every time you do the work, every time you push through, when you wanted to quit, acknowledge it, celebrate it. This doesn't have to be elaborate. It can be as simple as saying out loud, "I did it," or checking a box, or allowing yourself a moment of pride. The act of celebration reinforces the behavior. It tells your brain, "This is good. Keep doing this." And that reinforcement is what builds the habit, what keeps you going, what prevents quitting. You also need a system for dealing with setbacks, because setbacks will happen. You'll have bad days. You'll make mistakes. You'll fall short. And if you don't have a plan for how to respond, you'll spiral. You'll use the setback as evidence that you should quit. But if you have a system, you can recover quickly. The system could be as simple as a rule. If I miss a day, I restart the next day. No guilt, no shame, just restart. Or it could be a reflection process. When something goes wrong, I write down what happened and what I learned. I don't dwell, I just learn and move forward. The system removes the emotional turmoil. It gives you a clear path back, and that path keeps you from quitting. Here's the bottom line. Systems prevent quitting by making quitting harder and continuing easier. They remove the need for constant motivation. They eliminate decision fatigue. They create accountability. They track progress. They manage energy. They build habits. And they provide structure when emotions are high. You can't control how you feel, but you can control your systems. And when your systems are strong, your feelings matter less. You follow the system regardless of how you feel. And that's how you become someone who doesn't quit. Not through superhuman willpower, through smart systems that do the work for you. Build your systems, trust your systems, follow your systems, and watch how much easier it becomes to never give up. The long game. Patience and persistence. This is where most people fail. Not at the start, not in the middle, at the end. Right when they're about to break through, they quit because they can't see the finish line. They quit because progress is taking too long. They quit because they're tired of waiting. And here's the brutal truth. If you can't play the long game, you won't win anything worth winning, because everything meaningful takes time. Everything. And if you're not willing to be patient, if you're not willing to persist through the slow parts, you'll spend your whole life starting things you never finish. Let's talk about why patience is so hard. Because your brain hates delayed gratification. It wants rewards now. It wants to see results immediately. When you put in effort and don't see change, your brain interprets that as failure. It says, "This isn't working," and it pushes you to quit and try something else. But this is a trap, because most things worth doing have a long lag time between effort and results. You plant seeds, and nothing happens for weeks. Then suddenly, growth. You work out for months with minimal visible change. Then suddenly, transformation. You study for years with no clear payoff. Then suddenly, expertise. The lag is part of the process. It's not a sign you should quit. It's a sign you're on the right path. This is why so many people jump from thing to thing. They try something for a few weeks, don't see results, and move on. They think they're being strategic. They think they're pivoting. But really, they're just quitting over and over. And because they never stick with anything long enough for the compound effect to kick in, they never see real results. They're constantly in the early stage, the struggle stage, and they never get to the breakthrough stage. Because breakthroughs require time. They require persistence. They require staying in the game long past the point where most people quit. Here's what you need to understand about progress. It's not linear. It doesn't happen at a steady rate. It happens in jumps. You work for a long time with no visible change. Then suddenly, you jump to a new level. Then another plateau. Then another jump. This is called the plateau of latent potential. It's the stage where you're putting in effort, but not seeing results. And it feels like nothing is happening. But that's an illusion. Everything is happening. You're building foundation. You're developing skills. You're making invisible progress. And one day, that invisible progress becomes visible, all at once, but only if you don't quit during the plateau. Most people quit during the plateau. They can't handle the discomfort of not seeing results. They need constant validation, constant proof that they're moving forward. But the long game requires faith. Faith that your effort is accumulating even when you can't see it. Faith that the process works even when it feels like it's not. Faith that if you just keep going, you'll break through. And that faith has to be stronger than your doubt, because doubt will show up daily. And if your faith is weak, doubt will win and you'll quit. Let's talk about patience. Real patience. Not passive waiting. Active patience. Active patience means you're working while you wait. You're not sitting around hoping things will change. You're putting in daily effort, knowing that change takes time. You're planting seeds, watering them, and trusting that growth is happening even when you can't see it yet. That's the kind of patience that wins. The kind that combines effort with time. Because time alone doesn't create results. Effort alone doesn't create results. But effort plus time, That's unstoppable. One of the hardest parts of the long game is dealing with comparison. You look at people who are further ahead and you feel behind. You see their success and you think you should be there by now. But you don't see their timeline. You don't see the years of work they put in before you even knew who they were. You're comparing your beginning to their middle. And that comparison destroys your patience. It makes you feel like you're failing, when really, you're just on your own timeline. So you have to stop comparing. You have to focus on your own journey, your own progress, your own pace. Because the only person you're competing with is the person you were yesterday. Are you better today? That's all that matters. Patience also requires managing expectations. If you expect instant results, you'll be disappointed. And disappointment leads to quitting. But if you expect the process to take time, if you expect slow progress, you won't be caught off guard when it happens. You'll be prepared. You'll know it's normal, and you'll keep going. So get real about your timeline. Whatever you think it will take, double it, triple it, not to discourage you, to prepare you. Because when you're mentally prepared for a long journey, you're less likely to quit when the journey actually is long. Let's talk about persistence. Persistence is not the same as stubbornness. Stubbornness is doing the same thing over and over, even when it's clearly not working. Persistence is staying committed to your goal while being flexible with your approach. It's saying, I will reach this destination, but I'm willing to change the route if necessary. That's smart persistence. That's what successful people do. They don't quit on their goals. They quit on methods that don't work, and they try new methods over and over until something works. But they never quit on the goal itself. Persistence also means showing up on the days you don't feel like it. The days when motivation is gone, when you're tired, when you're discouraged, when you're questioning everything. Those are the days that matter most, because anyone can show up when they're excited, when things are going well, when they feel motivated. But showing up when you don't want to, that's character, that's discipline. That's what separates people who achieve from people who just dream. You build persistence by practicing persistence, by showing up when it's hard, by doing the work when you'd rather quit. Every time you do that, you're building the muscle. You're proving to yourself that you can be counted on. And that proof, that's what carries you through the long game. You also need to learn how to sit with discomfort. The long game is uncomfortable, by definition, because you're working towards something you don't have yet. You're sacrificing now for a payoff later, and your brain doesn't like that. It wants gratification now. So you feel uncomfortable, anxious, impatient, and your brain says, let's just stop. Let's go back to comfortable. But if you listen to that voice, you'll never achieve anything meaningful. You have to learn to sit with the discomfort, to be okay with not having arrived yet, to be okay with being in process. Because being in process is where you spend most of your time. The destination is brief, the journey is long, and if you can't find peace in the journey, you'll be miserable. So you have to train yourself to enjoy the process, to find satisfaction in the daily effort, to celebrate small progress, to love the work itself, not just the outcome. Let's address burnout. Because persistence doesn't mean pushing yourself into the ground. It doesn't mean never resting. It doesn't mean grinding until you collapse. That's not persistence. That's self-destruction. Real persistence includes rest. It includes recovery. It includes stepping back when necessary, so you can step forward stronger. You have to pace yourself. You have to think in years, not days. And when you think in years, you realize that taking a day off won't ruin you. That resting when you need it is part of the strategy. So be persistent, yes, but be smart about it. Don't burn out in the name of never giving up, because burning out is just another form of quitting. One of the most important mindset shifts for the long game is this. The work is never wasted. Even if you don't reach the exact goal you set, even if the outcome isn't what you hoped, the work itself changes you. It builds skills. It builds character. It builds resilience. You become someone different through the process, someone stronger, someone more capable. So even in the worst-case scenario, even if you try for years and don't achieve the specific outcome, you still win because you built yourself. And no one can take that away. That perspective makes the long game easier because you're not just chasing an outcome, you're becoming someone. And that process, that's valuable regardless of the result. Here's what you need to remember. The long game rewards the patient. It rewards the persistent. It rewards the people who refuse to quit, even when results are slow, because everyone else quits. Most people give up in the first few months. Some make it a year. Very few make it multiple years. So if you can just stay in the game, if you can just keep showing up, you're already in the top percentage. Not because you're special, because you didn't quit. That's the edge. Not quitting. Not when things are slow. Not when things are hard. Not when everyone else has moved on. You stay. You persist. You trust the process. And eventually the process pays off. Not might, will, but only if you play the long game. Only if you choose patience. Only if you refuse to quit. The long game is where ordinary people become extraordinary. Not through talent, through time, through effort, through persistence. Choose it, commit to it, and watch what happens when you refuse to give up. Real stories of never giving up. Let's talk about the people who actually did this. The ones who faced failure, doubt, and every reason to quit, but didn't. Because theory is one thing. Real-world proof is another. And when you see that ordinary people accomplished extraordinary things simply by refusing to give up, it changes what you think is possible for yourself. Thomas Edison is the obvious example. He failed over 1,000 times trying to create a working light bulb. Think about what that actually means. Imagine failing 1,000 times. Imagine people calling you crazy. Imagine the doubt, the frustration, the temptation to quit and do something easier. But he didn't. And when someone asked him about all those failures, he said something powerful. He said he didn't fail 1,000 times. He found 1,000 ways that didn't work. That's reframing at its finest. That's seeing failure as feedback. And because he refused to quit, because he kept trying, the world changed. Not because he was a genius, because he was persistent. J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter while she was broke, depressed, and a single mother living on welfare. She sent her manuscript to 12 publishers. All 12 rejected it. 12 different people told her no, that her book wasn't good enough, that no one would want to read it. Most people would have quit. Most people would have said, maybe I'm not meant to be a writer. But she didn't. She kept trying. And the 13th publisher said yes. And that one yes changed everything. Harry Potter became one of the most successful book series in history. But it almost didn't exist because it was one decision away from being abandoned. One more rejection away from never being written. She didn't quit. That's the only reason it exists. Colonel Sanders started Kentucky Fried Chicken when he was 62 years old. Most people at that age are thinking about retirement. He had his Social Security check and a chicken recipe. That's it. And he drove around the country trying to sell his recipe to restaurants. He got rejected over 1,000 times. Over 1,000. People laughed at him, told him his idea wouldn't work, told him he was too old. But he kept going. Door after door. Rejection after rejection. And eventually, someone said yes. And that yes turned into a global franchise. But imagine if he'd quit after rejection 500, after rejection 900. He was so close to a yes, and if he'd quit, no one would have ever known. That's the danger of quitting. You never know how close you were. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. Cut. The greatest basketball player of all time was told he wasn't good enough to play high school ball. How many people would have taken that as a sign? How many would have said, "Okay, I guess basketball isn't for me"? But he didn't. He used it as fuel. He practiced harder. He got better. And he made the team the next year. And then he became a legend. Not because he was naturally the best, because he refused to accept no as a final answer. He turned rejection into motivation, and that mindset carried him through his entire career. He missed thousands of shots, he lost hundreds of games, but he never stopped trying, and that's why he's remembered. Let's talk about someone less famous, someone who proves this isn't just for exceptional people. There was a man who wanted to run a marathon. He was overweight, out of shape, 50 years old. He hadn't exercised in decades. Everyone around him said it was a bad idea, that he'd hurt himself, that he should just accept his age and his condition. But he started anyway. He could barely run for 1 minute without stopping, but he kept going. 1 minute became 2, 2 became 5, weeks turned into months, and a year later, he finished a marathon. Not fast, not impressive by competitive standards, but he finished, and that finish changed him. Not just physically, mentally. He proved to himself that he could do hard things, that age and condition weren't excuses, that if he didn't quit, he could achieve what seemed impossible. That story isn't famous, but it's powerful, because it's repeatable. You don't have to be special, you just have to refuse to quit. Or the woman who went back to college at 40 years old. She had kids, a job, no time, no money. Everyone told her she was crazy, that she'd missed her chance, that she took one class, just one. She struggled. She felt out of place. She wanted to quit every week. But she finished the class. Then she took another, and another. 4 years later, she graduated. At 44 years old, she had a degree. And with that degree, she got a better job, a better life. All because she didn't let age or circumstance stop her. She didn't quit. These stories matter because they prove something. Success is not reserved for the talented, the lucky, or the young. It's available to anyone who refuses to quit, anyone who's willing to keep trying when everyone else has stopped. That's the only real difference. Not talent, not circumstances, not advantages, just persistence, just the refusal to give up. Let's talk about what these stories have in common. First, they all faced massive obstacles. Real, legitimate reasons to quit. Rejection, failure, age, poverty, doubt. If you're looking for excuses, you'll always find them. But they didn't look for excuses. They looked for ways forward. Second, they all failed multiple times before succeeding. None of them got it right on the first try, or the 10th, or the 100th. But they kept trying. They learned from failure. They adjusted. They improved. And eventually they broke through. Third, they all had moments where quitting would have been easier, where no one would have blamed them for stopping. But they chose differently. They chose to keep going, and that choice made all the difference. Here's what you need to take from these stories. You're not different from these people. You're not less capable. You're not less deserving. The only difference is the decision. They decided not to quit, and you can make that same decision. Right now, today, you can decide that no matter what happens, no matter how hard it gets, no matter how long it takes, you're not quitting. That's the decision that changes everything. Not talent, not luck, just the decision to persist. Think about your own life. Think about the times you quit. What would have happened if you'd kept going? Where would you be now if you hadn't given up? You don't know, and you'll never know, because you quit. But you can change that pattern starting today. You can become someone who doesn't quit, someone whose story inspires others. Not because you did something impossible, because you refuse to stop trying. That's the legacy you can build. One decision at a time, one day at a time, until not quitting is just who you are. Practical daily strategies. Theory is important. Understanding how your mind works is important. But none of it matters if you don't have practical strategies you can use right now, today, when you're on the edge of giving up. So let's talk about what you actually do in those moments. The specific techniques, the daily habits, the mental tools that keep you going when everything inside you says stop. First, let's talk about morning routines. How you start your day sets the tone for everything that follows. If you wake up scattered, reactive, checking your phone, you're already behind. You're letting the world set your agenda. But if you wake up with intention, if you start your day with clarity and purpose, you're in control. So here's what works. Wake up early enough that you're not rushed, even if it's just 30 minutes earlier. Use that time for yourself, not for email, not for social media, for you. This could be exercise, reading, meditation, journaling, whatever centers you, whatever reminds you of your goals and your values. The point is to start your day in control, to take ownership before anything else can claim your attention. When you do this, when you win the morning, the rest of the day is easier, your mind is clearer, your willpower is stronger, and you're less likely to quit when challenges show up. Next, let's talk about micro-commitments. These are tiny promises you make to yourself throughout the day. Not huge goals, just small, immediate actions. Right now, I will do 10 push-ups. Right now, I will write 1 paragraph. Right now, I will make 1 phone call. These micro-commitments serve 2 purposes. First, they create momentum. Small actions lead to more actions. Second, they build self-trust. Every time you make a commitment and keep it, even a tiny one, you're reinforcing the belief that you follow through. And that belief is everything. So throughout your day, make these micro-commitments. Keep them small, keep them achievable, and always follow through. Let's talk about the 5-minute rule. This is a technique for overcoming resistance. When you don't want to start something, when the task feels too big or too hard, commit to just 5 minutes. Tell yourself, I'll work on this for 5 minutes. That's it. 5 minutes feels manageable. Your brain can't argue with 5 minutes. So you start. And here's what usually happens. Once you start, once you're in motion, you keep going. The hardest part is starting, but 5 minutes gets you over that hurdle. And even if you only do 5 minutes, that's still progress. That's still a win. But more often than not, 5 minutes turns into 10, then 20. Then you finish the task, all because you lowered the barrier to entry. Another powerful strategy is visualization, but not the fluffy kind. Not sitting around imagining success without action. We're talking about mental rehearsal. Before you face a challenge, before you do something difficult, you visualize yourself doing it. You see yourself pushing through the discomfort. You see yourself handling the obstacles. You see yourself not quitting. This primes your brain. It creates a mental blueprint. And when you actually face the challenge, your brain has already practiced the response. It's easier because you've done it before, even if only in your mind. Athletes use this technique constantly. Before a race, before a game, they visualize success. They see themselves performing, and it works. Not because it's magic, because the brain doesn't fully distinguish between vivid imagination and real experience. So use this. Visualize yourself not quitting. Visualize yourself pushing through, and when the moment comes, you'll be ready. Let's talk about the power of breath. When you're stressed, when you're overwhelmed, when you want to quit, your breath changes. It gets shallow, fast. And that shallow breathing signals danger to your brain. It amplifies your stress, so you have to control your breath. Deliberately, slowly. Deep breath in through your nose. Hold for a count of 4. Slow breath out through your mouth. Repeat. This activates your parasympathetic nervous system. It calms your stress response. It tells your brain you're safe. And when your brain feels safe, It stops pushing you to quit. This is not theoretical. This is physiology. Control your breath, and you control your state. So when the urge to quit shows up, breathe. 5 deep breaths. That's all it takes to shift from panic to calm, from quitting to continuing. Another critical strategy is reframing self-talk. The words you use in your head matter. If you're telling yourself, I can't do this, this is too hard, I'm not good enough, you're programming failure. But if you reframe those thoughts, if you change the language, you change the outcome. Instead of, I can't do this, you say, I can't do this yet. Instead of, this is too hard, you say, this is challenging and I'm growing. Instead of, I'm not good enough, you say, I'm good enough to keep trying. Small changes in language create big changes in mindset. So pay attention to your self-talk. When you catch yourself using negative language, stop, reframe. Choose words that support you instead of defeating you. Let's talk about the power of rest. Real rest. Not distraction, not numbing, but actual recovery. When you're tired, when you're depleted, your brain's quit mechanism is strongest. You don't have the energy to resist it, so you have to protect your rest. Sleep enough, not just a few hours, enough, 7 to 8 hours, and make it quality sleep. Dark room, cool temperature, no screens before bed. When you're rested, everything is easier. Your willpower is stronger. Your emotions are steadier. Your mind is clearer, and you're far less likely to quit. So don't sacrifice sleep in the name of productivity. It's counterproductive. Rest is part of the strategy, not a distraction from it. Another practical tool is the 2-minute rule. If something takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. Don't put it off. Don't add it to a list. Just do it. This keeps small tasks from piling up, because when small tasks pile up, they create mental clutter, and mental clutter drains your energy. It makes everything feel harder, but when you handle small things immediately, you keep your mental space clear. You preserve energy for the things that actually matter. This is about momentum. Small actions create more actions, and that momentum keeps you moving forward instead of stalling out. Let's talk about accountability check-ins. This is where you sit down, either with yourself or with someone else, and review your progress. What did you commit to? What did you actually do? Where did you fall short? Why? This isn't about judgment. It's about awareness, because you can't improve what you're not aware of. So once a week, do a check-in. Be honest. Look at the data. See the patterns. And adjust. Maybe you're taking on too much. Maybe you're not taking on enough. Maybe your approach needs to change. You won't know unless you check. And that check keeps you on track. It prevents drift. It keeps quitting from sneaking in unnoticed. Another strategy is the pre-commitment. This is where you make the decision before you're in the moment, before you're tired, before you're stressed, before you're tempted to quit. You decide in advance what you'll do. And then when the moment comes, you don't debate, you execute. For example, you decide in advance that no matter how you feel, you work out every morning. You don't leave room for negotiation. The decision is made, so when the alarm goes off, you don't ask yourself if you feel like it. You just get up. Because the decision was already made. This removes willpower from the equation. And when willpower is removed, quitting becomes much harder. Let's address the concept of non-negotiables. These are the things you do no matter what. Rain or shine, tired or energized, good day or bad day. You do them. These are your anchors, the habits that keep you grounded. Maybe it's exercise, maybe it's reading, maybe it's meditation. Whatever it is, you make it non-negotiable. You don't allow exceptions, because once you start making exceptions, the exception becomes the rule, and the rule becomes quitting. So decide what's non-negotiable in your life and protect it fiercely. This is your foundation, and foundations don't move. Finally, let's talk about end-of-day reflection. Before you go to sleep, take 5 minutes to reflect on your day. Did you do what you said you would? Did you show up? Did you push through when you wanted to quit? If yes, acknowledge it. Celebrate it. If no, don't beat yourself up. Just ask, what can I do differently tomorrow? This reflection keeps you connected to your goals. It keeps you aware of your patterns, and it creates a continuous feedback loop. You learn from each day. You adjust. You improve. And over time, those small improvements compound into massive change. But it only works if you reflect, if you pay attention, if you use each day as data for the next. These strategies work, not because they're complicated, because they're simple and repeatable. You don't need to do all of them. Pick the ones that resonate. Build them into your daily routine and use them when the urge to quit shows up. Because the urge will show up, but when it does, you'll have tools, you'll have strategies, you'll have a plan. And with a plan, quitting stops being automatic. It becomes a choice, and you can choose differently. You can choose to keep going, one breath at a time, 1 minute at a time, 1 day at a time, until you've built a life where not quitting is just who you are. Conclusion. Your next step forward. So here we are. You've made it to the end, and now you have a choice. You can close this, go back to your life, and nothing changes. Or you can decide right now, right here, that you're done being someone who quits, that you're done letting fear, doubt, and discomfort dictate your decisions, that you're ready to become someone who finishes what they start. Not someday, today. Everything you've learned here is useless if you don't apply it. Knowledge without action is just entertainment, and you didn't come here to be entertained. You came here because something in you knows you're capable of more. Something in you is tired of quitting. Something in you wants to change. So listen to that voice. That's the real you. The version of you that doesn't give up. The version of you that keeps going, no matter what. That version is already inside you. You just have to start acting like it. Let's be clear about what this requires. It requires you to get uncomfortable, to face the things you've been avoiding, to stop making excuses, to stop waiting for the perfect moment, to stop hoping someone else will fix your life for you. No one is coming. This is on you. But that's not bad news. That's empowering news. Because if it's on you, then you have control. You can decide. You can act. You can change. Starting right now. Here's what you need to do first. Pick one thing, one goal, one area of your life where you've been quitting. Maybe it's your health. Maybe it's a project. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's your career. Pick one, just one, and commit to not quitting on it. Not for a week, not for a month, until you finish it, until you see it through. No matter how long it takes, no matter how hard it gets, you're not quitting. That's your commitment. Make it now. Next, implement one strategy from this. Not all of them, just one. Maybe it's building a morning routine. Maybe it's tracking your progress. Maybe it's using the 5-minute rule. Pick one thing that resonated with you and start doing it today, not tomorrow. Today, because tomorrow is how quitting starts. Tomorrow turns into next week. Next week turns into never. So today, choose one strategy, implement it, and do it again tomorrow. Then, tell someone. Share your commitment with someone who will hold you accountable. Someone who won't let you off the hook. Someone who will ask you how it's going. This external accountability is powerful. It makes quitting harder, because now it's not just you who knows. Someone else is watching. And that pressure, that healthy pressure, can be the difference between quitting and continuing. So find that person, tell them what you're committing to, and give them permission to hold you to it. You also need to accept that this won't be easy. It won't be smooth. You will have bad days. Days where you doubt yourself. Days where you want to quit. Days where it feels like nothing is working. That's normal. That's part of the process. Don't be surprised by it. Don't let it derail you. Just expect it. And when those days come, use the tools you've learned here. Breathe. Reframe. Take one small step. Talk back to the voice that says quit. And keep going. Because those hard days, those are the days that build you. Those are the days that separate people who achieve from people who just dream. Remember, training your mind to never give up is not a one-time decision. It's a daily practice. It's a continuous choice. Every single day, you wake up and choose again. Today, I don't quit. Tomorrow, you choose again. And the day after that, and the day after that. And slowly, over time, that choice becomes automatic. It becomes who you are. You stop being someone who quits. You become someone who finishes, someone who persists, someone who doesn't break under pressure. That's the person you're building, day by day, choice by choice, action by action. This is your moment. Not to wait, not to plan, not to prepare, to act, to decide, to commit. You've been given all the tools. You understand how your mind works. You know what prevents quitting. You know the strategies. Now you just have to use them. And the only way to use them is to start right now. Not when you feel ready. Not when conditions are perfect. Now, because now is all you have. Now is the only moment you can control. So use it. Choose not to quit. Choose to keep going. Choose to become the person you know you can be. Your mind is powerful, more powerful than you realize. But it needs training. It needs direction. It needs you to take control. So take control. Train your mind the way you train your body, with intention, with consistency, with patience. And watch what happens. Watch how your life changes when quitting is no longer an option. When persistence becomes your default, when finishing becomes your identity. That's the life waiting for you. But it only comes to those who refuse to quit. So here's the final question. Are you ready? Are you ready to stop being someone who quits? Are you ready to become someone who finishes? Are you ready to prove to yourself that you're capable of more than you've ever shown? If the answer is yes, then act. Close this. Pick your goal, choose your strategy, tell your accountability partner, and start today, right now, because your future self is counting on the decision you make in this moment. Don't let them down. And hey, before you go, if this helped you, if it gave you something valuable, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, because we're building a community here. A community of people who don't quit. People who face challenges head on. People who are committed to growth. And I want you to be part of that. I want to keep supporting you on this journey. So subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. But for now, go. Take what you learned here and use it. Build the life you want. Become the person you're meant to be. And remember, you're not alone in this. Everyone struggles. Everyone wants to quit sometimes. The difference is what you do with that feeling. Do you let it win, or do you keep going anyway? The choice is yours, and I believe you'll choose right. Now go prove me right.